The old wooden floorboards of our Charleston home groaned under my weight as I paced, a familiar anxiety gnawing at my insides. For weeks, maybe even months, a disquiet had settled over me, a sense that something was profoundly wrong. My wife, Isolde, a vibrant and captivating woman who had stolen my heart years ago, had become distant, almost spectral. Her laughter, once the soundtrack of our lives, was now a rare and strained melody. Her touch, once a comforting balm, felt perfunctory, almost clinical. I tried to brush it off, attributing it to stress from her demanding job as a real estate agent, but the unease persisted, a constant, dull ache in my chest. I'm Barnaby, 46, an IT specialist. I love my job, designing and maintaining complex systems, but my true passion lies in my family. Isolde and I have been married for 18 years, a tapestry woven with shared dreams, laughter, and the quiet comfort of companionship. We weathered storms together, celebrated triumphs, and built a life that, until recently, felt idyllic. We had no children, a conscious decision we made early in our marriage, choosing instead to focus on our careers and each other. Our Charleston home, with its sprawling porch and view of the harbor, was our sanctuary, a testament to our shared success and unwavering commitment. But lately, the sanctuary felt tainted. Isolde's late nights at the office became increasingly frequent. Her explanations were vague, peppered with jargon that I, a techie, found surprisingly difficult to decipher. Her phone, once readily accessible, was now guarded with a vigilance that bordered on paranoia. She'd clutch it to her chest, even in the bathroom, her eyes darting nervously if I so much as glanced in her direction. I tried to talk to her, to broach the subject of her changed behavior, but she'd deflect with practiced ease, dismissing my concerns as unfounded anxieties. "You're just imagining things, Barnaby," she'd say, her voice laced with a patronizing sweetness that stung more than any outright accusation. "I'm just busy, stressed. You know how demanding this job can be." Evening, I decided to surprise her at work. I'd planned a romantic dinner at Poogan's Porch, a Charleston institution, and wanted to whisk her away from the pressures of her day. I arrived at her office building, a sleek modern structure in the heart of the historic district, and asked the receptionist for Isolde. "She's in a meeting," the woman said, her eyes flickering with an odd mixture of sympathy and discomfort. "With Mr. Caldwell." The name struck a discordant note. I knew Isolde had mentioned a new senior partner at her firm, but something about the way the receptionist said his name, the subtle hesitation in her voice, set off alarm bells in my head. "Could I wait for her?" I asked, forcing a smile. "I have a surprise for her." The receptionist hesitated, then nodded. "Of course. Have a seat." I waited for what felt like an eternity, my anxiety escalating with each passing minute. I tried to distract myself with my phone, scrolling through news articles and social media feeds, but my mind kept returning to Caldwell. Who was he? What was his relationship with Isolde? Why did the receptionist look at me with such pity? Finally, after nearly an hour, the door to the meeting room opened. Isolde emerged, her face flushed, her hair slightly disheveled. Behind her stood a man, tall and handsome, with a predatory glint in his eyes. It was Caldwell. He placed a hand on Isolde's back, his fingers lingering a moment longer than necessary. "Barnaby," Isolde exclaimed, her voice a little too high-pitched. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to surprise you," I said, my voice tight. "I made reservations at Poogan's Porch." Isolde's eyes darted to Caldwell, then back to me. "Oh, Barnaby, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice dripping with insincerity. "I completely forgot. I have to work late tonight. Mr. Caldwell and I are finalizing a deal." Caldwell smirked, his eyes locking with mine in a silent, arrogant challenge. "Yes, a very important deal," he said, his voice smooth and oily. "Perhaps another time, Barnaby." I stood there, paralyzed, as Isolde and Caldwell walked away, their bodies brushing against each other, their voices a low, conspiratorial murmur. The receptionist watched me with a knowing look, her eyes filled with pity. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, a sickening realization that my worst fears were being confirmed. My wife was having an affair. The drive home was a blur. I barely registered the sights and sounds of Charleston, the horse-drawn carriages, the stately mansions, the bustling marketplace. My mind was racing, replaying every moment of the past few months, searching for clues, for explanations, for some way to make sense of the betrayal. How could she do this to me? To us? After all these years, after all we'd built together, how could she throw it all away for some Caldwell? I arrived home to find the house empty, silent. Isolde had texted, saying she'd be home late. I poured myself a glass of bourbon neat and sat on the porch, staring out at the harbor. The lights of the city twinkled in the distance, mocking my despair. I felt a profound sense of loss, as if a part of me had died. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was gone, replaced by a stranger, a liar, a cheat. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, my mind consumed by images of Isolde and Caldwell, their bodies intertwined, their laughter echoing in my ears. I felt a rage building inside me, a burning desire for revenge. But revenge against whom? Isolde, Caldwell, or myself for being so blind, so naive. The next morning, I decided to hire a private investigator. I needed proof, concrete evidence of Isolde's infidelity. I couldn't confront her based on suspicion alone. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I found a reputable agency online and scheduled a meeting for that afternoon. The investigator, a seasoned professional named Mallory, listened patiently as I recounted my suspicions. She asked probing questions, her eyes sharp and intelligent. "We'll need to gather evidence," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. "Photos, videos, phone records. It could take a few weeks, but we'll get you the answers you need." Next few weeks were agonizing. I lived in a state of constant anxiety, my nerves frayed, my appetite non-existent. I went through the motions at work, but my mind was elsewhere, consumed by the investigation. Isolde, meanwhile, continued her charade, her lies becoming more elaborate, her excuses more transparent. I played along, pretending to believe her, all the while knowing that the truth was lurking just beneath the surface. Finally, Mallory called. "I have something for you," she said, her voice grim. "Can you come to my office?" I rushed over, my heart pounding in my chest. Mallory handed me a thick envelope. Inside were photos, dozens of them, depicting Isolde and Caldwell in compromising positions. They were having an affair, a full-blown, passionate affair. The photos were graphic, undeniable. There was no room for doubt. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, stronger than before. The photos were like a physical blow, shattering the last vestiges of my hope. I stared at them, my mind reeling, my emotions a chaotic jumble of anger, grief, and disbelief. "There's more," Mallory said, her voice soft. She handed me a transcript of phone calls and text messages between Isolde and Caldwell. The messages were explicit, filled with sexual innuendo and declarations of love. But one message in particular caught my eye. It was from Isolde to Caldwell, sent a few weeks earlier. "I'm getting tired of playing this game. Barnaby is oblivious. I want you, I want us. How much longer do I have to wait?" The words hit me like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just having an affair, she was planning to leave me. She was tired of me, of our life together. I was nothing more than an obstacle in her path to happiness. I left Mallory's office in a daze, the photos and transcripts burning a hole in my pocket. I drove home, my mind racing, my heart filled with a cold, hard rage. I knew what I had to do. I had to confront Isolde. I had to expose her lies. I had to end this charade. I arrived home to find Isolde waiting for me, a nervous smile on her face. "Barnaby, darling," she said, her voice saccharine sweet. "How was your day?" I said nothing. I simply handed her the envelope. Isolde's eyes widened as she opened it, her face draining of color as she recognized the contents. She stared at the photos, her mouth agape, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and shame. "Barnaby, I can explain," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Explain what, Isolde?" I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Explain how you've been lying to me for months. Explain how you've been betraying me with that Caldwell. Explain how you were planning to leave me." Isolde burst into tears. "It's not what you think," she sobbed. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far, it just happened." I repeated, my voice rising. "You didn't mean for it to go this far. You were sending him love messages, planning your future together. How much further did you want it to go?" Isolde continued to sob, her body shaking uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry, Barnaby," she wailed. "I still love you. Please forgive me, love me," I scoffed. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have lied to me. You wouldn't have betrayed me." I turned and walked away, leaving her sobbing in the living room. I went upstairs to our bedroom and started packing my bags. "Where are you going?" Isolde asked, following me upstairs, her voice pleading. "I'm leaving you, Isolde," I said, my voice cold and resolute. "I'm done. I can't stay here, not after what you've done." "But what about us?" she cried. "What about our life together?" "There is no us anymore, Isolde," I said. "You destroyed it. You destroyed everything." I finished packing and walked out of the house, leaving Isolde standing in the doorway, her face a mask of despair. I didn't look back. There was nothing left for me there. As I drove away, I felt a sense of liberation, as if a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I was free. Free from the lies, free from the betrayal, free from Isolde. I moved into a small apartment downtown, a stark contrast to our sprawling Charleston home. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the logic and order of computer systems. I started exercising, running along the battery, feeling the wind in my hair, the sun on my face. I reconnected with old friends, people I had neglected during my marriage. I started living again. Isolde, meanwhile, tried to contact me, calling and texting relentlessly. I ignored her calls, deleted her messages. I had nothing to say to her. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. A few weeks later, I received a letter from a lawyer. Isolde was filing for divorce. I wasn't surprised. I signed the papers without hesitation and sent them back. I wanted nothing from her, no alimony, no property. I just wanted to be done with her. The divorce was finalized quickly and without incident. I was officially a free man. But even though I was free, I wasn't happy. I was still haunted by the betrayal, by the lies, by the memories of what we had lost. One evening, a few months after the divorce, I received a phone call from an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered it. "Hello," I said. "Barnaby, it's Isolde," the voice on the other end said, her voice weak and trembling. "I need your help." I almost hung up, but something in her voice stopped me. "What do you want, Isolde?" I asked, my voice cold. "It's Caldwell," she said, her voice barely a whisper. He's been abusing me." I was silent for a moment, trying to process what she was saying. The arrogant, predatory Caldwell abusing Isolde. It seemed almost too ironic. "What do you mean, abusing you?" I asked, my voice softening slightly. "He's been hitting me," she said, her voice breaking. "He's been controlling me. He's not the man I thought he was." I felt a flicker of sympathy for her despite everything. She had made a terrible mistake, and now she was paying the price. "Why are you telling me this, Isolde?" I asked. "Why are you calling me?" "Because I don't know who else to turn to," she said, her voice pleading. "I'm scared." I hesitated, torn between my anger and my compassion. I knew I should hang up, that I should let her deal with the consequences of her actions. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. "Where are you?" I asked. She told me her address, a luxury apartment in a gated community outside of Charleston. I drove there immediately, my mind racing. When I arrived, I found Isolde waiting for me outside the building, her face bruised and swollen, her eyes filled with terror. I took her to a hospital, where she was treated for her injuries. I stayed with her all night, holding her hand, comforting her as she cried. She told me everything, how Caldwell had initially charmed her with his wealth and power, how he had gradually become more controlling and abusive, how she had tried to leave him but he wouldn't let her. I listened patiently, my heart aching for the woman she had once been, the woman I had loved. I knew I couldn't forgive her for what she had done, but I couldn't abandon her in her time of need. "What are you going to do?" I asked when she had finished her story. "I don't know," she said, her voice weak. "I'm afraid of him." "I'll help you," I said. "I'll help you get away from him. I'll help you start over." And I did. I helped Isolde find a new apartment, a safe place where Caldwell couldn't find her. I helped her get a restraining order against him. I helped her find a new job, a fresh start. I didn't forgive her, not completely, but I helped her heal. I helped her rebuild her life. And in doing so, I found a measure of peace for myself. I realized that revenge wasn't the answer, that forgiveness, even if it wasn't complete, was the only way to move on. Isolde eventually moved away, starting a new life in another state. We stayed in touch, occasionally exchanging emails or phone calls. She never stopped expressing her remorse for what she had done, and I never stopped reminding her of the pain she had caused. But in the end, we both survived. We both learned from our mistakes. and we both found a way to move on, to build new lives, to find happiness again. The betrayal had left a scar, a permanent reminder of the pain we had endured. But it had also taught us a valuable lesson, that even in the darkest of times there is always hope for redemption, for forgiveness, and for a new beginning. Years later, I met someone new, a kind and compassionate woman named Bront. We built a life together, a life filled with love, trust, and mutual respect. I never forgot Isolde, but I didn't let her define me. I learned to forgive, to move on, to embrace the future with an open heart. And as I look back on my life, I realize that the betrayal, as painful as it was, ultimately made me a stronger, more resilient person. It taught me the importance of forgiveness, the power of compassion, and the enduring strength of the human spirit.